this is a really great opportunity. The nice thing about you folks being here is we have a VIP sign-up list. So if you think you're interested, what happens at the booth is we have a sign-up list there and we call them, but these people we're going to call first to give you the opportunity to get first in line for the time slots. I think normally it's 8 to 9, 9 to 10, 10 to 11, something like that. One year we had 120 people show up, so we had to add an additional tour. So if you're at all interested, this is a great opportunity for you guys to get a little sneak peek. So next Saturday, if you're available, Eric can come around, and if you'd like to sign up, we will call you with a time slot. This is kind of what it looks like. So you come, we force you to have a picture taken with us, and then you can actually see the windows being manufactured. It's very, very interesting. And for you, it'll take an hour, maybe an hour and a half total time. So if you have time on Saturday, think about this. All right, so a little bit about our company. I know it's a bold statement, but that is my father, and he is one of the 3 people credited with bringing vinyl windows to the United States. So that really points to the history that our company has. We've been here in Hawaii manufacturing windows for 32 years, but we also have a really deep history as it relates to windows in general, especially vinyl windows. So we are different. You're going to see that too as we go on. We are different in a lot of respects. We manufacture them here. They're all our own design. We don't bring in somebody else's product and build it for you. We design the window. We manufacture the window. We're a BC licensed contractor. So most of the times when you install the windows, although there are times that people want to buy them under a contract and put it in, that's fine too. And then later on down the road, we service the window. So we really are from start to finish, and you have someone to partner with as long as you like your windows. So it's a little bit different than what other people do. That's an interesting picture. That's what really shorts were in style.
Coming back.
And I go back, yes, so that's good. So that is me, and that is Clint. He is our vice president and our R&D, the license holder. This is just to show you that we've been making and dealing with us since we were children. So that's 40 years experience each. I went to work for my dad's window company right out of high school, and he went to work for his dad's construction company right out of high school. So, the 2 of us bring a lot of knowledge, but hi Jeannie, here comes the life of the party right there. Yeah. All right, so different things about us and award-winning, things that we've been blessed with over the years. Torch Award, I got to meet the president because our company was nominated and received the Freedom Award in 2008. And then some Senate and House honors as well. So if you are planning to come, and even if you don't come to next weekend's seminar, at any point, if you want to come to the factory, you're more than welcome. If you end up coming to the showroom, we'll take you out the plant and let you know what's going on. Just next week, it's not going to be event. But at any time, you can see it. 30,000 feet under the roof, and we manufacture from start to finish. So that is what you're going to be taking a look at if you come back. So we operate in a lot of different areas. So all of our products are commercially rated, but we do mostly residential and we also do commercial. I think one of the slides later will show you that we are approved by DPP for use in high-rise. So all of our products are commercially rated, which is great for residential applications because you get a really strong window with a commercial test rating, right? So, but we also can do 44-story buildings as well. That's our BC contractor license number, and factory trained sales, installation, and service. What that refers to is a lot of the people come off of the factory floor and they go to the service department. Sometimes they go to the installation department. Just recently, we needed to fix some guys out of the installation department to put them in production, so we're trying to catch up a little bit. So a lot of our people are cross-trained. It really helps. It really helps the customer. So this seminar is really about window shopping, right? And these are the 5 topics that we're going to try and cover. do my best. Sometimes I get off topic, but that's kind of fun sometimes too, right? So, everyone has a hot topic, whether it's ventilation or security or heat rejection or aesthetics or something, right? Everyone's got a hot topic. So our job is to try and move you in that direction, right? And what can we do? How do we do it without violating codes, burning life safety, and things like that? So I'm sure you're all thinking about it. This is what I have now. I have jealousies and I hate them. I have jealousies and I want jealousies again, which is also pretty common for us too. So we're going to have a discussion about your topics, try and fit your needs. That's what these guys do on a regular basis. They are very, very well educated, very personable, and easy to work with. And girls. And then the decision factors. You know, before we actually move forward in the production and everything's on paper, it's a really good time to say, okay, is there anything else you want to see? Are you sure this is where you want to go? It's much better than us making the windows and just regretting that. I wish I had done this, right? So we spend an inordinate amount of time going over to make sure that it is correct. And measurements and methods, I'll touch on that later. There's a really distinct difference between how we install windows and how other people install windows, and you should know the difference, and we'll talk about that later. Customer care and service is ongoing. It is a lifetime commitment for us. So this window is in need of replacement. It's 100+ years old. It was out of Palm Summit, right off the vineyard, and it is coated in lead paint. It's true divided lights, meaning each one of these paints is an individual piece of glass, right? So their hot topic is, there's a lot. It's security, it's aesthetics, it's heat rejection, right? So they got a lot going on here. And these are just some of the common ones. Nowadays, the hurricane protection is very, very prominent. There's a lot of people talking about impact rated windows and what do I do. We've all seen during the past, and maybe even done it ourselves, there's a hurricane coming, we take off the windows. Stop doing it. This is not a very good idea, it doesn't really do a whole lot. We've heard people say, if there's a hurricane coming, open all the windows and let the air through. Terrible idea. Because the goal is to stop the wind from entering the structure and then try to escape, because there's nowhere to go. And if it tries to escape, it fills up the room. Eventually, the barometric pressure is 100%, and it blows the roof off the house. So the way we do that nowadays is we have a stout window that doesn't blow in when a hurricane comes, right? We protect what they call the envelope. And we'll talk about that later too. Actually, we have the hurricane or the homeowner's handbook for natural disasters to pass out for you folks, personal client. So that is the current hot topic, and these are just other ones. Probably on your list too. So these are the things we'll talk about very commonly. Of course, sometimes there's other topics that we talk about, but these are very, very common topics. I talked to a lady in the booth this morning who's got jalousie windows on the ground and a big fixed glass window on top. We've all seen that. Why that is, I don't know. It's ridiculous if you ask me, because this is where you push your furniture and you close off the windows on the ground, on the floor. And if there are bushes and shrubs on the outside, it's a perfect place for someone to hide behind when they're trying to get their louvers out. But it's awful, right? So what we do commonly is sometimes we will flip it over. We'll put a fixed glass on the bottom, take out that plate glass and put a sliding window on top. So now you go from maybe 2 or 3 blade jalousies to maybe a 4-foot by 6-foot sliding window. You increase your ventilation, you change a little bit of the house, right? So things like that is how I want you to start thinking. Not just, these are the items available in this catalog. Give it to us. Can you do this? Is this possible? Have you done this before? Right? That's how you really should start thinking. Because we're the manufacturer, right? So we could make it for you. You know, considering that we're taking everything into consideration, the building code, the safety, tempered glass, and things like that. So there's a lot to think about. Okay, so we're going to talk about these topics as we move forward. The first thing is materials. They're very your various materials that make window frames out of. What Eric is going to do is pass around 2-inch wide slivers of 2 different sliding window frames. One of them is ours, and one of them is somebody else's. What I call a mainland slider or mainland window. So what I would encourage you to do is take those pieces and pinch them, squeeze them, bend them, do whatever you want. Give yourself an idea of which one is made differently and stronger than the other. Because when you look at a window on the face, that's what you see. This is an opportunity to actually look inside the window and get an idea of what that frame looks like. Has anyone ever heard of fiberglass frames? Yeah, so I didn't bring the gloves, but we can still do it without, if somebody doesn't mind taking a chance. But so, when you crush, actually I'll make Eric do it. That way you know workers' comp means the fiberglass. So, you've bent and pinched and manipulated those 2 frames that are coming around. This is a fiberglass frame. Same thing. It's a cutaway sliver, and Eric is going to demonstrate what happens if you were to give that some room for us. It's a little bit different than the vinyl sample we've passed around. And the reason is, it doesn't mean that window is not strong. It means that window is strong in one direction and not the other. It's fiberglass. It's long length fibers, much like a piece of wood, a piece of pine. You've seen martial arts people break a piece of wood along the grain. It's really hard to break it the other direction. That's very similar to how fiberglass is going to react. Unfortunately for them, the way in which that breaks is also the way on the window. So it doesn't really mean a lot when it comes to how strong that window is as an assembly. Okay, and wood's very common too. Here in Hawaii, wood is nice and rich, but if you don't maintain it, then you really should expect to replace it down the road. You spend a decent amount of money for a wood product, and if you don't treat it, if you don't keep the salt off of it, then you're not doing too good. So wood's pretty tough. Vinyl, of course, has a lot of positive attributes. Now, those 2 samples made all the way around. Did we notice that one was different than the other? Did anyone? I mean, it's kind of impactful. So the one on Eric's left hand is ours, and the other one is not. So that gives you an idea of what the inside looks like. Our walls are thicker, our webs are more frequent, meaning there's more of them, right? So that's kind of an idea of where you're going when you look at our products. And then window styles and functions are also really common. Like I mentioned earlier, there are 2 types of people when it relates to jalousies, the lovers and the haters. There's very, very few people in between. If you have jalousies and you want them again, that's great. We make a really nice jalousie window, 6-inch blade, inside screen, outside screen. We can make it so you can't get the slats out, security type jalousie. And ordinarily, you don't use those 2 words in the same sentence, right? But we can make it security jalousie. There's a couple of issues we're going to talk about, and that relates to fire code. We will not put that security jalousie in your bedroom because while people can't get out, you can't get out either from the inside, right? So we'll talk about that, and that is one of your things. Awning windows are a great alternative to jalousie windows because they will open up like a jalousie. We have a product that will open up almost parallel to the ground. So that gives you a lot of air, and then once you close it and lock it, nice and secure, we can put a low beam type of dual pane glass in there, whereas a jalousie you're kind of limited to a single pane glass, right? So it's almost like an upgraded jalousie window, if you will. Specialty windows, we talked about hurricane impact, egress we're going to mention, touch on that later, and then applications. The 90% of our work is residential, and 10% is high-rise. Thereabouts. Those numbers are not exact, but we do a fair amount of commercial work as well. And in style and function, those are the things that come up most commonly. There's a lot of technology as it relates to glass nowadays. We're used to, when we first started making windows in 1990, insulated glass, or IG as it's known, was not nearly as good as it is today. So as a result, we did mostly single pane glass. But you can do a dual pane glass nowadays that is just light years where it was 30 years ago, or even 20 years ago. So not only is it clear, it'll block out a tremendous amount of heat. We brought a heat lamp, we can show you what that demonstration looks like. And in function, well, that goes back to what is your goal, whether it's security, ventilation, things like that. Maintenance is a really good topic too. I always talk about Ernest Church. His church is in Kailua, and they have awning windows. Awning windows are a really great option, but you have to remember that we live in an island, the most isolated landmass on planet Earth, and it's surrounded by salt water. My house is in Mililani, 900 feet above sea level, and the salt is dripping off my window frames. Right, so Kailua, Kailua, Manalo, Laie is worse, not worse. There's a lot of salt. It's all airborne from the ocean, right? So if you have an awning window and it's compromised with a decent amount of hardware, even if it's stainless steel, do not let anybody tell you that it's stainless steel, you don't have to ever maintain it. It's not how it works. Stainless steel is just better than steel or zinc dichromate or aluminum, even or two pieces. The problem is you have two pieces of metal and they touch. So if you have two pieces of stainless steel, one's a 300 series, one's a 400 series, when you touch them, and you have this circle of metal, you're going to have corrosion in that contact point. If you secure your stainless steel with a steel fastener, you're going to have corrosion in that contact point. So back to this church, 25, 27 years ago, we put in awning windows in this church in Kailua. That was back when the hardware was not really even available with stainless steel. So it was a coated operator mechanism, and it was like a zinc dichromate hinges, right? So kind of bare bones, but they clean the windows. How often? Once a month.
Once a month.
Once a month, and they clean the windows. They don't just clean the windows, right? So they get all the salt off all the metal, and as a result, their hardware is perfect because their level of maintenance is up here, right? You come to my house, and after 20 years, you can see my hardware starting to pit in different locations. Because my level of maintenance is down here. I admit it. It's just the way it is, right? So don't think and don't expect that a stainless steel, my worries are over, right? It is not how it works. It is directly related to location and your level of maintenance. So if you clean it, well, that goes for everything else too, right? But I just, because there's things going around that we hear in the industry, and I don't want people to think that I'm home free because my hardware is made out of stainless steel. Okay, well, I really killed that horse, right? Gee, something else. Okay, so glass types, we talked about this a little bit too. Monolithic is just single pane. It's a fancy word, right? It's just one piece of glass. Dual pane, or IG, is two pieces of glass with an airspace. Very common nowadays. We get this from Cardinal. They are located in Oregon. And they make a really, really nice piece of glass that is about almost 70% visible light transmittance. And I think you're going to be amazed at how much heat it's going to reject. Laminated glass is two pieces of glass, which I think I have a graphic. Two pieces of glass with a PVB layer in between. Yeah, have you ever seen a car windshield break where it'll break into spider cracks? It's laminated. Whereas your side windows and your back window, if it does break, it breaks in little tiny diamond pieces. Those are tempered. Both are considered safety, but laminate is not nearly as strong as safety glass. And of course, there's impact glass, which is made from, you can have dual pane glass like that, but it has a laminated layer. So two pieces of glass with a 90 thousandths century glass plus clear, hard inner layers. So I think I have a video of the impact testing, but that inner layer is what stops a projectile. So there's a 9-pound 2x4 fired out of an air cannon, and it hits the glass in 3 different locations, 3 different test specimens, and you can't have more than 5 inch gash in that glass. And after it passes that test, it goes on the test wall for further testing. We'll discuss that a little bit. Fire rate glass is something I want you folks to know about too. I'm sure you've seen diamond wire in between the glass. People think that's safety glass. Really what that is fire rated glass. So there's a couple things. You'll know if you see that glass, most likely that window is installed in a fire rated location. Sometimes there's a hot water heater outside, sometimes there's a stairwell, sometimes there's another source of something that could be. So by code, that has to last a certain number of minutes or hours. And that window is fire rated. So don't think that because it has the wire, it's safe. Yes, sir.
You know, this glass or whatever. Okay, so that stops flying objects or whatever. What about the frame of the window?
That's a good question. So he's asking, since the laminated layer stops the projectiles, how does the window react? And we're going to touch on that later. I'm going to go over that right now. I just don't want to go too far. All right, these are also hot topics that people are related to when it comes to glazing options. Okay. Nowadays, this is the quite one of the hottest topic because it's a great way to block the heat coming out of your house. And this demonstration that we'll show you later is very impactful. Also, UV protection. This low heat glass that we showed you, this dual pane glass, also will block out 99%, I think, of the ultraviolet. I have a light spectrum that'll break that up for you, but if you ever notice that your carpet gets degraded, your drapes, that's all because it's ultraviolet damage, whereas this glass will stop that. So here is a graphic of what a insulated panel looks like. Of course, you already saw the physical sample. Not a fan of this terminology, self-cleaning, but because it doesn't clean itself, it's a little misleading. I like low maintenance or something like that, but it's actually a coating on the exterior surface of the glass. It is a titanium dioxide coating that's sputtered to the glass. Sputtering is kind of like a spray, but the sputtering is to spray what powder coating is to paint, right? So it bonds to the surface when you sputter something. So sputtering titanium dioxide on the surface of the glass, what it does is just fills in all of those two crannies and makes it essentially really smooth. So if something were to hit and stick to it, you can hose it down and everything will just wash right off. So it's invisible, it's clear, it does a pretty good job of low maintenance, but it certainly does not clean itself. Don't want that at all. Here is a sample of laminated, by I mentioned earlier, 2 pieces of glass with a PVB layer in between. Imagine this layer is 30 thousandths, really small and flexible, whereas the hurricane inner layer is 90 thousandths, it's triple the thickness, but it's a hard inner layer, not soft and flexible. That's what stops the projectiles, the flying debris. Colors, within the last maybe 5 to 8 years, colors have been really, really popular. We do this all in-house, which is something you'll see if you come by next Saturday. So we will coat the exterior of our products. We won't do both interior and exterior. But we can do bronze, what Eric is passing around is a very popular color. These colors are also part of our color wheel. We can also color match. So if you bring us a brush out and say, I would like my window exterior color to be this, we will custom order that color and coat the windows for you. So Nowadays, there's a little bit more versatility in your window selection. This is a test report. It's a little too technical at times for me to go over, but really what this will tell you is how the window was tested. So essentially, we build a sample, send it off to the independent test laboratory, and they will hit it with air and water and air and water. And so let's see what structural load it will take, how much air, how it drains, right? So all of our windows are tested independently. This is a video.
Doors and windows are vulnerable components of your home's protective shell or building envelope because they are easily penetrated by windborne debris, often generated by the high winds of storms like hurricanes. If the envelope is breached during a storm because of the failure of windows and doors, wind-driven rain and debris can enter your home, causing considerable damage to its interior and your property. An even more critical problem develops when the envelope is breached. High winds can enter your home and exert high internal pressure on the inside of your walls and roof. These internal pressures, combined with the external suction caused by the wind blowing over your home, can lead to catastrophic damage. You can protect your home's door and window openings by installing impact-resistant windows and doors, or installing impact-resistant coverings, such as shutters over windows and doors. Impact-resistant glass and shutters are specifically designed to meet a combination of impact and pressure from the wind. Always use products that have been tested using one of these standards and have been approved for use by a recognized product approval system or evaluation report. Impact-resistant windows and glass doors contain laminated glass made of a clear plastic-like film sandwiched between two specially treated pieces of glass, giving the unit greater strength than standard glass alone. Equally important as the strength of the glass is the strength of the unit's frame. An impact-resistant unit is tested as a unit that includes the glass, the frame, as well as the attachment hardware and the installation method. Impact-resistant units should always be installed following the manufacturer's recommendations.
Okay, so there's good information in that video. I like my explanation a little bit better, but it really tells the same story. The next video is actually one of our impact test windows. So to answer your question, kind of touched on it here. Once the window is impacted in 3 different areas, they will do center, upper corner, and then lower corner. Once that air cannon fires those 3 2x4s, they take the window off the test wall and they put it back on the structural test wall. And that'll test it to whatever was tested. Remember previous slides, maybe 3 or 4 slides that we saw a test report? Whatever that window tested to structurally is what they're going to test it to again structurally. But this time, they're going to baffle it to that pressure limit 4,500 times positive and 4,500 times negative. So 9,000 cycles back. I want to say they're 10-second bursts. It kind of mimics the ebb and the flow of a hurricane. It is a solid force wind. Sometimes it backs off and it starts back up again. So you've got to pass both this missile and then how the entire window unit tests on the wall. So let me see if this is actual video. No? Got it? So we do have a video, it's on our website, and you'll see the actual air cannon being fired and hit that glass. And I think it's right here. So it's very interesting. We have 4 products that meet the hurricane impact requirements. And the other thing they're not mentioning, which I think is really, really important, is yes, these windows will protect you from a hurricane, especially flying debris and things like that. But your security level, 365 days out of the year, goes maximum when you have a hurricane impact rated window. Because imagine somebody wants to come into your house and you're carrying a cold water 2x4. They're not getting to that glass. right? So that is integral, it's part of the window forever, right? So yes, it's great at hurricane, but for a security standpoint, it really makes a big difference. Okay, so manufacturing, yes sir. You know, so the answer is, when I put impact windows in a single wall construction. No. No, it doesn't make sense.
So how do you deal with sense that? Because
So,
will that withstand the hurricane force?
I'm sorry, say the last part again.
You know, let's say my house is already built, and I'm gonna retrofit plans or reinforcement, but my house is 2x4s or whatever, 24 inch on 7 examples. So what, I mean, I have strong windows, but my house is still flow.
Right, so the question is really about, what do you do for a single wall house? So at the end of the day, it's your decision. But if you are gonna ask our opinion, we're gonna tell you, I don't see it, it doesn't make sense. You can, of course, if you want, but the house is not strong enough, right? So, to me, it doesn't make sense to put, I don't even think it makes sense to put a dual pane heat rejecting glass in a single wall house. Because as soon as your siding, your redwood siding heats up, it's all gonna radiate in. You can, be happy to do it for you, but if you ask our opinion, we're gonna tell you the truth. That doesn't really make sense to me. So, I hope that answers your question. You know, our company philosophy, we have been doing this for 32 years. And I can guarantee you 100% that how many people we have here? We've got like maybe 10, 12 people. There is some connection between either you and our company or you and me personally. There's some connection, whether you know or our kids play basketball together, whatever, right? So we are really conscious of that. We live here with you. And we are not interested in selling you something that you don't need or you don't want, or it's not going to be any good. We have no interest in that. So we're going to, like I said earlier, the consultation part with us is we're going to try to get you to where you want to be. And if you ask me if I should put hurricane impact windows in a single wall house, I'm going to tell you no.
Yeah. And if I may just interject real quick, right? I mean, this is going back to what Bob said about when we had that conversation. So I had a gentleman who has a single wall house, but he's on a slope, so he has CMU on the bottom portion, and the main house is the redwood siding single wall on the top. But his main concern was he was getting older in age. He has all the pre-cut plywood on the side, but when it comes time for a hurricane, he doesn't want to have to be going up and putting them up there anymore. So while he does have a single wall house, we knew what his objective and his goal was, and I gave him two options. You could either do this one or you could do that one. So while we may not, while our opinion may be that we wouldn't do it for hurricane protection, for the impact and not wanting to put those boards up, for him, that was more important, we can do it.
It's going to come down to what you want. So, right? There's two different things. What you think our opinion is, what you think of it, and what you want. It's your house, right? So, conditions like that. He's referring to the pre-cut piece of plywood because that's how the building code is written. So, if you go in for a new building permit now, they're going to make you meet the impact standards, and it just recently changed. Whereas the impact zone used to be the perimeter of Oahu. And it recently changed now, and it's the whole island except for a small piece in the middle. So, if you're going to meet code, impact windows is one of the options. The other option is to have pre-cut plywood at the house, labeled what window it's made or come for. And then when hurricane approaches, you cover the windows with plywood. Nobody wants to do that, but it's kind of like a little escape clause in the building code. So if you didn't want to get impact rated windows, it does nothing for security for the rest of the year for you, and it doesn't do any heat rejection. But if you want to meet code without getting new impact windows, you can do the plywood option. The people that we talk to, nobody opts for the black option, but it's the way around. Okay, manufacturing, these are some of the things you're gonna see. This machine is a 4-point welder. Nope, we do not have it in the booth. Our frames, our corners are welded or thermally fused. That machine is exactly what it sounds like. It's a welder. In each of these corners where this yellow cage is a heat plate, and it'll push up against both liners of the cut piece and heat it up, and then actually thermally fuse them together. This is an example of an aluminum window that's screwed together or mechanically fastened, right? So this is your typical, in fact, you can pass this around because it's really easy to see which one of those screws was on the outside of the building and which one was on the inside. And what I was talking about earlier as it relates to the similar metal corrosion, right? So vinyl, and this is not exclusive really for us, but vinyl windows are most of the time thermally fused. The corners are really strong, airtight, watertight, perfectly 90 degrees. It's a great window frame. Processing happens before the welding process, right? All the holes were put in and stuff like that. So once it's welded, we really can't get them into the punch press, and that's what that is a picture of. Quality control for us is done manually. We don't have a computer or a scanner. Everything is looked at by hand or by eye or in person. And if there's a problem, it gets kicked back and repaired. So building codes, these are the ones that we most commonly help people with. This is a really big one. I'm going to talk about this, and this you really should be aware of. This is very, very important. We talked about missile railing heights is big. If you're in a high rise, your railing height is a big thing. We've dealt with that many times, so we're pretty good with that type of building code. Energy ratings, light ventilation is also a building code that we need to help you with if required, and fire rating. Fire rating is, I talked earlier about the diamond type of glass. There are certain locations, not your house usually, but sometimes, like in your house, the door between the garage and the dwelling is a solid core wooden door. It's much thicker, much heavier, because it's fire rated to X number of hours or minutes or whatever. So that is one example of a fire rating. But as it relates to windows, fire rated windows are normally steel. They're very rare to find in aluminum and not manufactured in vinyl. Vinyl, so one of the things we had to do when we passed that DPP requirements for high-rise use is go through the fire proving data with them. So as a building material, vinyl is what they call self-extinguishing, whereas wood has oxygen in it, and when it lights on fire, the flames feed on the oxygen in that building material, in that wood. Where vinyl really doesn't have that, so if it does light on fire and ignite, the flame will go out. So it is known as self-extinguishing. But it'll soften at about 180 degrees, so it's not a product you can make a fire rated window out of. Well, there is a high-rise approval for us. I think every 3 years we have to go for reapproval. There's an example of high-rise work or commercial work for us. This is a 44-story building right in Waikiki. This is a little bit different, because the installation is just a different animal. The waterproofing is different. Our guys are hanging on the swing stage. It's a little bit dangerous and not something for everybody. The high-rise work the commercial work is a different animal. Oops. Okay. We highlighted in red the 4 items you really need to know. So egress window, every bedroom has got to have an egress window. And I'm sure when you go home, you're going to say, are we good? We have an egress window. I can't stop looking at it when I'm watching HDTV and I see them working on a house and all that window doesn't get egress, so we should tell those people. So it's really important. It's fire safety. You need to be able to get out, and a fire or an oxygen tank needs to be able to get in. Okay? So a minimum 5.7 square feet of open area, a minimum height of 24, a minimum width of 20, and a minimum sill height or maximum sill height of 44 inches or less from the finished floor. Okay? So Every bedroom, if you have a swinging door that goes to the outside, you have a sliding door that goes to the outside, that's egress. If you have a window that your sill height is higher than 44, you don't need egress. You need to meet all 4 of those requirements, not pick or choose. The kicker is jalousie windows are exempt. We talked about this earlier, that jalousie window you cannot remove the slats from. So technically, you meet code, but we are not going to put that type of window in your bedroom because you may have a hard time getting out, right? This window is in a townhouse complex on Oahu. It is in a bedroom. This is fixed glass with 2 or 1 3-blade jalousies on the bottom. This building is 50 years old, and they need egress. The problem is, if there's no fire outside this bedroom, this occupant is in a lot of trouble. Because probably not been able to climb out of that 3-blade jalousie. It's probably only 16 inches tall. And they may or may not be strong enough to pick up a chair and throw it through the fixed glass window. I don't know. So Ernest and I were out there at the board meeting, and we mentioned that to them years ago. And the board president got upset with me, accused me of trying to scare a kid, and he was 100% right, because this is a scary thing, right? So if you go home and you have jalousie windows and they're small, that's because they met code. But you really should think, are these windows big enough for us to get out of if there's a fire? We see this all the time. This is a really common one for us. Measurements and methods, right? So it really does matter how you measure. So let's say we come to your house and you want us to measure everything. Ernest and his guys and girls are going to come out and they'll measure 36, 36. They'll give you a price. And you'll fall in love with the price and you'll sign up and you'll give us your deposit, and we'll have 2 or 3 days later, we're going to come back and measure for accuracy. 34 7/8, 36 3/8. So those are the numbers we're bringing back to the factory to make your windows to, right? If we're installing. If we're not installing them, we're going to ask you, provide us with the numbers, with whatever sizes they should be, whatever sizes your installer says they should be, and we'll make them in size. If they don't fit, and the installer says, I can't make them work, then we're going to have to figure out how to make you new windows and at what cost. If we measure it and they don't fit, that's our fault. Our responsibility, we'll take care of that. And I mean, stuff like that has happened. We've been doing this for 32 years, so we try to be perfect, but we're human, right? So things happen. But it really does matter where you measure from. I've taken wooden windows out from a really large manufacturer in the US, but it looks like you can measure from here to here. But at the end of the day, if you take the whole window out, you could be like 4 or 5 inches short, because there's much more to that window by the time you get to the stud, right? It's just the way they're manufactured. So kind of tricky. My point is, it really doesn't matter. Yeah, perfect fit. Square level and plumb. So we take a lot of care to make sure a lot of houses, especially single wall houses, are no longer square level and plumb. So you don't want to put the window in and match the opening. You put the window in square, and then maybe you make it up with trim, of some sort, right? So you don't want to put the window in and shoehorn it so it matches it at a square level. Again, I said earlier, high-rise work is a lot different. Like a building like this is 44 stories. When we got this contract, we went into every single unit and measured. Because concrete buildings, after time, right, it could shift, it could move a little bit, right? So if there's a 3-inch difference between the ground floor and the upper floor, you don't want to fill it with sealant, you want to make sure the windows are right size. So same with your house, we are still going to measure every single one. Liquid flashing is very common for us to use on a concrete structure. We don't like the metal flashing because ordinarily you put metal flashing on, you can penetrate it a little faster, and what good is it then? It's fast, it's a flashing at all. And liquid flashing will seal around those screw threads, so it's much better application. Sealant. So I always ask the question, when it's a little silly, how much should you pay for a tube to seal it. And there's no answer, there's no right answer, because you should never buy sealant based on price, right? Don't let somebody put a window in and then seal the exterior with a latex caulk. Because it'll look good for the first couple of weeks, and it's latex, it's water soluble, it's eventually gonna break down. And once you have a pinhole and you're letting water through that sealant bead, you don't know where it's gonna go, right? So that's my answer to that question. You don't buy sealant based on it's 99 cents or $1.29 or $2, whatever. That is the wrong method of purchasing sealant. So we get this, it's a hybrid, it's a silicone and a elastomeric combination. When we get salespeople that give us data sheets for sealant, the first thing we do is run through a series of tests at our factory. And we test its adhesion to vinyl, to glass, to wood, and to concrete. And then if it passes all those tests, we'll take a look at it. So we've been using this. There's one other. We have two that we use that are very, very good. A tube from this retails for I think like $11 each, right? But it's like I said, it's a hybrid, but it's also paintable. So it's a very high quality sealant. And I spent some time talking about that because it really matters. I also have told a story about an architect's house I went to in Wahiwa, and he said his jealousy with us were in water. So of course we went up there and we looked at it, and you could see that the inside was wet, trying to figure out where the water is coming from. The sealant bead along the outside was great, it looked beautiful. I don't know what it was, but something motivated us to push down on the windowsill. So we pushed on the bottom of the frame, and the sealant bead that was on the bottom opened up, water poured out, and it laid back down against the wood. So it was silicone, so 100% silicone. It stuck to the vinyl, but it never stuck to the building, to the wood. So it was letting water in, and it opened up like a trap door, let a cup of water out, and it sealed back. So it looked great, but it wasn't working. So sealant is really key. Our company is also lead safe certified, meaning we went through the process of training, and if you do have lead in your house, we will take care of it. There's usually no effect on the overall installation. And I think it was 35% of the homes pre-1978 had lead, and we have testing it at the job site. And then this is kind of the tail end, so support. Something people don't think about is where am I going? So I have these new windows and something happens, who do I call? Our company's been around for 32 years. When you send a service request to us you talk to the people that designed it, manufactured it, most of the time installed it. So intimate knowledge of the overall window and products in general, and the service technician when he comes out also has probably come off of the shop floor. So he knows it very well too, right? So a little bit different level of maintenance and care. Okay, so again, we still have the seminar next Saturday. If you want to sign up and get your slot, your VIP slot. And at this time, we've got 10 minutes, and I'd be happy to answer questions if you have any comments. We do. So we do sliding doors. We do traditional sliding doors in 2-panel, 3-panel, and 4-panel, and then we also do stacking doors. We have examples of both in our booth. Booth number 425 through 431. And the stacking doors, you can do almost any configuration. It can be 20 feet long, it can be 30 feet long, it can be center open, it can be stacking on one side, it can be stacking on pocket. So we do a lot of doors. Anything else? Hoppers? No. So a hopper window is an awning window, but it pulls in from the top. So it pulls in this way, right? So we do not. What else? We gotta have something. All right, so the last 5 minutes, we're gonna run the heat lamp demo. So if you want to see this, which I would think you would, come on up. And also, if you want a copy of the homeowner's handbook, we've got that up here too for you. It's very handy. It's got a lot of good information in it, and it's a great way to help you prepare for a hurricane.